Chase, I saw you were on FanDuel yesterday. Can you explain this, please?
I didn't even realize that I was on FanDuel until I got a text that said, hey, your tweet's on FanDuel. And I'm like, there's no way this is happening. And the tweet reads, and this is actually a tweet from late June, early July. I was at a cookout when I tweeted this. It was on a Sunday night, ironically. It was 10 Sundays away from the first Sunday of the NFL. And I was just sitting there. I'm like, man, like we're not that far. We really aren't. But while we're at it, before training camp and everything else, because it was that time frame in between mini camp and training camp where there's just nothing. And I'm like, the tweet says, I ain't going to lie. Joe Burrow was the best QB in the game for 2024, and I don't think anyone can truly debate it. So obviously, yes. So obviously, there are some great quarterbacks, and I love that. I love that bell. You know, it makes me feel super official. Let me just say this, all right? Josh Allen won the MVP this past year. Everyone thinks Lamar should have won it, and Lamar had a ridiculous season. Josh had a ridiculous season. You know, Patrick Mahomes had a pretty good season. There were a lot of quarterbacks that had very good seasons. Joe Burrow had an astronomical season when it came to numbers and production and everything else. And obviously, his team finished 9-8 and did not make the playoffs. And there were a bunch of asterisks beside that for people saying they want to vote for MVP or not. That's off the records. Here's what I'm going to say. So the Burrow tweet. I think he was the best quarterback last year. More specifically, I think he was the best thrower of the football, and that's where I don't think it's close. All right? Here's note number one. We say, and this is not we, the general public of people, aka on Twitter, say, imagine Lamar, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, having the weapons like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. All right, guys, if we want to go history lesson right here, the Bengals drafted T. Higgins 33rd overall in 2020, the same draft where they got Joe Burrow, and they drafted Jamar Chase 5th overall in 2021. Let's also mention this. Burrow's team, the year that before he got drafted, the Bengals were 2-14. They were not a good football team. And his first year when he tore his ACL, they were 4-11-1, which also resulted in them selecting Jamar Chase 5th overall. So they had some great players because their teams were bad, but the instant turnaround of success happened because of that trio right there amongst other players on that roster. Lamar Jackson's team before drafted, they were 9-7 in 2017. They missed the playoffs thanks to the Cincinnati Bengals. And the team that made the playoffs was future Josh Allen's team, the Buffalo Bills, and they were 9-7. So both of those quarterbacks were inheriting pretty good rosters. They were playoff rosters from rookies getting on the field. And then the year before in 2016, the Chiefs were 12-4 before they drafted Patrick Mahomes. He sat for a year. Alex Smith and the Chiefs went 11-5, and then Patrick Mahomes took over, and the rest is history. So those other teams, I'm going to say this, the other teams have drafted well and consistently to the point where they haven't fallen below the line. So if the Bengals had to get that from the ground up, the identity of the Bengals is the quarterback and the receivers. The other teams, let's just call it as it is, they're more well-rounded than the Cincinnati Bengals. It just so happens the Bengals have good quarterback and receivers. I also want to say this. Look at how wide open Lamar's receivers were against the Bengals compared to Joe Burrow throwing it to these guys against the Ravens. I mean, I say go watch the film. Oh my gosh. I mean, Rashad Bateman, for example, he was running wide freaking open on man-to-man, zone coverage, whatever. Zay Flowers had a lot of opportunities there. Mark Andrews running wide open. Isaiah Likely, there were so many things. Those guys were running wide open. A truck could have drove through the zone, the multiple zones that was, even man-to-man coverage, okay? So let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. And that also leads into my third point that Joe Burrow was making, he was throwing some absolute dimes on scheme plays and on broken plays. For example, a third down deep throw to Andre Yoshivas against the Ravens in week 5 in the third quarter down the sideline. It was an adjusting ball to his back shoulder, 40 yards down the field. One of the most beautiful passes that I have seen from that all-22 vision. If you haven't seen the video, you know what? I might tweet it out again. The first and third touchdown throw that Jamar Chase had against the Baltimore Ravens in the Week 10 Thursday Night Football game. Joe threw that thing right over the middle, over top of a defender and right in the middle of a zone, and Chase did the rest. And then the third one was arguably one of Joe Burrow's best throws of his career in a cover 2 scenario when Jamar Chase ran a corner and got it over top of not one, but 2 Ravens defenders in the back corner, coffin corner of the end zone when the Bengals looked like they were out of life, and brought them back to life for another play. And then the overtime throw to T. Higgins versus the Denver Broncos in week 17. I mean, literally right in the breadbasket down the sideline with pressure in his face. That was a beautiful ball. And there were so many more of those. If you just turn on the tape, you could tell. Now, I'll tell you this. This is from a lot of people from, the league, whether it be scouts, executives, and everything else. Joe makes the right decision nearly every time. The ladder of quarterbacks are good at making plays out of nothing. Joe Burrow is actually the highest graded passer under 2.5 seconds per PFF. His grade was a 93.8. And then to preface for that, Mahomes was 7th, Lamar was 8th, and Josh Allen was outside of the top 10. If we're going with 2.5 seconds or more, Joe Burrow was actually 4th in the league with an 83.1 PFF grade. Lamar Jackson had the highest grade for anyone with 2.5 seconds or more. It was a 95 grade, which is unbelievable. Guess what? The amount of time he was able to buy, cool. I am all with it. These are all great quarterbacks. I just have to say that, all right? But when you're talking about making that quick decision, you're talking about making the right decision as well, and time is not of the essence for Joe Burrow compared to these other quarterbacks. He is making, water and turning it into wine at some rates. And you might say, oh, you got Jamar Chase. Oh, you got T. Higgins. Well, guess what? He's utilizing his weapons to the best of their abilities and even more astronomically. And then you get to the playoffs with these best teams like the Ravens, who have really should have won and got to the Super Bowl the last 2 years. But how do they fall short? Because they beat themselves. And guess what else? Who was it to blame? You look at the quarterback first. That's all I'm going to say. And then this is an interesting one. You're going to find this really, really funny, Alex. Don't estimate the legs of Joe Burrow. Don't underestimate the legs of Joe Burrow, excuse me. The longest run by Lamar Jackson in 2024 was 48 yards. The longest run by Joe Burrow in 2024 was 47 yards. The longest run by Patrick Mahomes in 2024 was 33 yards. And the longest run by Josh Allen this past year was 30 yards. Obviously, these guys do it a little bit more. They do it a lot more because they're dynamic players. But here's the narrative. Joe Burrow can't run. He's not as athletic as these guys. He's so sneaky athletic that it doesn't need to happen. He can kill you with his arms so bad that you forget about his athletic ability. Good day.